Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's School Leadership State Highlight webinar being hosted by the National Governors Association. And in partnership with the Wallace Foundation, I'm Seth Gerson, Program Director for K-12 Education in the Education Division of NGA. As part of the division's work with governors on strengthening their educator development and support systems, we believe, and the research is clear on this, that school leadership is a critical part of a broader strategy for ensuring educator and student success. We hope this webinar will provide you with a better understanding of the value of school leadership and a strong example to draw on of how governors and states have prioritized and enacted policies that support the development and growth of principals and other school leaders. Today, we would like to spotlight how Louisiana's Governor John Bel Edwards and the Louisiana State Department of Education are working together to advance school leadership in their state. We'll take a close look at Louisiana's efforts to support principal development, including the state's Principal Fellowship program, with insights on how these initiatives were developed and are being implemented, and how the governor has empowered state, district, and school leaders to move this work forward. For our panel today, first we are joined by Donald Songy, Education Policy Advisor for Governor Edwards. Donald has been serving as advisor to Governor Edwards since October 2016. Prior to that, Donald had a 38-year career in the Ascension Parish Public School System in Louisiana, where he served as a teacher, principal, personnel director, and superintendent. We're also honored to be joined by Hannah Dietsch, Assistant Superintendent for Talent at the Louisiana Department of Education. Prior to joining the Louisiana Department of Education in 2012, Hannah worked for the New Teacher Project, New York City Department of Education, Teach for America, and the Maryland State Department of Education. She has also taught in Baltimore, Maryland. For participants, first I'll moderate a conversation with Donald and Hannah for approximately 40 minutes and then leave around 15 minutes for Q&A. Please note that all lines will be muted during the moderated conversation. Please save your questions for Q&A at the end. The session is being recorded and we will send it out to all participants at the end. So let's dive in. Hannah, first question for you. If you could provide an overview and please describe Louisiana's efforts to improve school leadership.
Sure. Thank you so much, Seth. Really honored to be part of this conversation with Donald, who is a close partner of ours, and National Governors Association, who's done so much to put issues of teaching, leadership, and teacher preparation at the fore. So here in Louisiana, we seek to provide leadership growth opportunities at multiple points in an educator's career. First, for current teachers over the past several years, we've worked to establish formalized teacher leadership roles that prepare teachers to assume leader responsibilities from within a school while also maintaining partial or full teaching load, but that provide an experience of leadership that prepares them to assume greater leadership roles. These roles are a mentor-teacher role, which is meant to help current teachers develop the skills and knowledge they need to mentor our undergraduate teaching residents or new teachers beginning their career, and also a content expert role that is meant to provide teachers very deep training and expertise on our state's standards and curriculum, and provides them an opportunity and materials to redeliver that expertise to teachers in their schools or school system. These are formal credentialed roles. We've trained over 1,000 mentors and content leaders, and we'll train over 1,000 next year. So really trying to build up this cadre of teacher leaders who are then more prepared to move into a school-based leadership role. And in that regard, in terms of preparing principals, we have several, over 20 approved leader preparation programs in our state. We work closely with universities and other practice-based programs to ensure that they're preparing leaders for Louisiana schools and school systems, but understand that no preparation program can fully prepare a leader for the realities of school leadership and therefore provide multiple opportunities or support opportunities for current sitting principals, primarily through our Principal Fellowship, which Seth mentioned earlier. And so we have a partnership with the National Institute of School Leadership, or NISL, and over the past 4 years have worked with approximately 400 early to mid-career leaders throughout our state to go through this year-long program that builds particularly instructional leadership skills and skills around building a strong workforce from within a school. So really trying at the end of the day to build a strong pipeline of school leaders and support those who are coming through or in school leadership programs, and then supporting principals who are currently in the role to do their best to make sure that students are successful and teachers are successful as well.
Thanks, Hannah. Really appreciate that overview. So Donald, turning a little bit to the governor's role in this work, why does the governor's office value school leadership? Why has it been important to the governor's office to support principal development?
Well, Seth, first of all, I'd also like to thank you for hosting this and for all that NGA does to support our efforts for education in Louisiana. It's been a great source of knowledge and support for what we've done. Our governor, John Bell Edwards, is keenly aware of the importance of the principal in the school improvement process. He's often said that where you find an outstanding school, you'll always find an outstanding principal. Personally, I spent 9 years as a middle school principal, and it was the most challenging job of my career, also the most rewarding. Whenever you see a principal, you'll see a busy person. They have a lot to do, and the skill set required to be an effective principal is quite extensive. It ranges from managerial skills, that's one group of skills like budgeting, having the necessary learning materials and supplies available, the maintenance and cleanliness of the campus, the orderly movement of students between classes, and student behavior in the classroom. Those are all kind of managerial skills that are critical. In addition, there's the area of public relations. Principals got to gain support of parents, business and community leaders, and the general public. And then definitely the most important area would involve instructional leadership skills. That involves things like hiring effective teachers. And then once they're hired, improving their instruction through evaluation and professional development, curricular development and implementation, scheduling of the instructional program, and probably one of the most important things in this area is maintaining and enhancing faculty morale. That's critical. Now, unfortunately, principals will tell you that most of these skills are learned on the job, often by the trial and error method. What we'd like to do, if we want to have outstanding principals leading outstanding schools, it's essential that we try to help aspiring school leaders and newly appointed ones acquire as many of these skills as we possibly can.
Thanks, Donald. And as you were talking, it really made me think not just that you're bringing the expertise you're bringing as a governor's policy advisor, but your background, having worked in schools for all those years, being able to bring that lens to the work is critically important. Hannah, back to you just to talk a little bit about the nuts and bolts of the Principal Fellowship. If you could talk about not just the fellowship itself, but what the state was seeking to address as part of the fellowship program.
Definitely. So just to provide some context, over the past 7 years in our state, we, together with educators across the state, have developed and adopted new standards for students. We have developed and put into place new assessments for students. We have seen school systems adopt high-quality curriculum that is better aligned to those standards and better aligned to what we expect of students as they go off into the world. And these are significant changes in teachers' work lives. And as we raise the quality of teaching across Louisiana and want to support students to do so, as Donald was saying, I think we increasingly realize that this requires very skilled instructional leaders in our schools. And we basically looked at ourselves and said, what can we do to better support principals to be strong instructional leaders, both those who are coming up through the ranks, hence the mentor and content expert cadre, sort of instilling that expertise at an earlier point in an educator's career, but also for sitting principals who may have gone through their principal preparation program, many years ago. What can we do to support them? Or newer principals who simply did not have that kind of training in their leader preparation program. And so we sought to establish this fellowship that would help early and mid-career principals really come into their own in terms of instructional leadership. The National Institute for School Leadership, or NISL, has a really strong track record and a strong body of research behind it in terms of building strong instructional leaders. And so we, rather than starting from scratch, we began our work with NISL and customized their training content to our Louisiana context. And so developed a fellowship. It's about a year long, meets in person, that is focused on managing change within a school context. So to Donald's point, how to work with teachers to make changes while keeping morale high and ensuring that teachers feel valued and part of an effort to ensure student success. And that's a very sophisticated skill, and so there's ample time spent on that specific skill within the Principal Fellowship. How to organize your team at the school to ensure maximum success for students and to ensure that teachers are supported and moving ahead in their own growth and careers. The fellowship also provides training on ensuring that classroom instruction is standards-based and that teachers are getting support on how to use the curriculum in service of students mastering those standards. We also provide training on how to identify good instruction and coach toward it within the context of this training. And then there's time spent on the ethical side of school leadership and team development, and what factors are likely to lead to lasting and positive change for that particular school, its teachers, and its students. It's a holistic program of support and development. We've had really positive feedback from those who've gone through the fellowship, many of whom have gone on to assume greater leadership roles in school systems, and who remain in close touch with those who went through the fellowship cohort, which I take as a positive sign as well.
Thanks, Hannah. So really connecting expertise from one cohort to the next, and so really setting up a network throughout the state of sharing expertise. That's great to hear, and a good model for other states. Donald, back to you about a question we get all the time is around how roles are designated between the governor and the State Department of Education, and then of course between states and districts. So how has the governor's office in this work really empowered state and district and school leaders to move this work forward?
Well, Seth, the Louisiana Principal Fellowship was actually initiated and developed prior to Governor Edwards assuming office. We'll have to give kudos to Hannah and to her staff at the Department of Education, along with the State Board of Education, for having the vision and the drive to set this up, to see the importance of it, and to develop this program. Now, as education policy advisor in the governor's office, we maintain a very close working relationship with the Department of Education, as well as teacher organizations, the organization of principals, and superintendents. And we work very closely with them on a lot of issues. And I think just by letting them know how important we think this program is, and the whole process of leadership development, I think it's important that all of those groups have buy-in, that they work with each other and with the Department of Education to make it as successful as possible. And I think Hannah will agree that for the most part, the Principal Fellowship has been well received by teachers across the state, judging by the number of participants and the number of people who have gone through the program. And we're starting to see some very good effects of it right now. But the governor totally understands the importance of this effort, and he's totally supportive of the work of the department.
Thanks, Donald. And you spoke about the importance of bringing in teachers and principals and superintendents in the conversation, and that's where I'd like to take the conversation with Hannah as well. We know how important stakeholder engagement and buy-in are critical for the success and sustainability of these initiatives. How have you brought educators, school leaders into the development and implementation of the Principal Fellowship and other initiatives throughout the state?
Yeah, definitely. So first, through federal competitive and block grants, we've substantially subsidized all of these different leadership development programs: mentor, teacher, content leader, and the Principal Fellowship. So we've really tried to offset the cost of developing these leader cadres by subsidizing them. We had a nearly $55 million federal TIF grant that supported the development and implementation of mentor and content leader, and also included funding for NISL. And we've used Title II competitive funds to competitive school improvement funds to subsidize this work in our comprehensive intervention required schools, to really trying to also place the resources where they are most needed. Beyond finances, we have a few different structures for working with educators in our state to solicit feedback on these training programs and our efforts, writ large. We gather our teacher leaders and also our school system leaders quarterly in regional collaborations, and at those collaborations, we're able to we've been able to share sort of an overview of the training content, make adjustments based on feedback from the field, and that has been very beneficial. Every summer, we also have a summit that takes place in New Orleans. Last year, we had over 6,000 educators attend, teachers, school leaders, school system leaders, and had several sessions dedicated to the mentor, content expert, and Principal Fellowship cadres, where we've been able to solicit feedback on the design of the training, the implementation of the training in particular, how that sort of mechanically works within the context of an academic year, and have used those venues for pulling our educators together to get feedback and make adjustments.
Thanks, Hannah. And sticking with you for a few minutes, in terms of the alignment of the number of the different initiatives throughout Louisiana focused on not only school leaders and principals, but also educators overall, educator development and support, how have you assured the alignment of all of those initiatives? And have you used ESSA as a vehicle for doing so?
Yeah, absolutely, Seth. I think this is one of the biggest challenges that state agencies, state education agencies face. So we at the state level, and Donald knows this so well working in the governor's office, and also as sort of a client of ours in the school system, it is very hard to organize the work of the state in a way that, Seth, as you were saying, is aligned and coherent. But if our work is to take root, as you say, it must be aligned and coherent. Otherwise, school systems will have difficulty sustaining the work at the system and school level. So we work very, very hard in our agency to create coherence across all of our academic or instructional efforts. The way that looks in practice, I can give you a couple of just tactical points on this, is that we have a body comprised of the leaders of all of the academic offices, so our sort of curriculum and instruction office, our assessment office, our early childhood office, the Office of Talent. We come together on a weekly basis for an hour to meet to ensure that what we are planning and implementing in the field is aligned and coherent. That regular meeting takes a different shape depending on the point in time it is in the academic year. Right now, for example, we are at a point where we are developing our priorities and our plan of support for school systems for the 2019-2020 academic year. So everyone who provides academic guidance or support to school systems at the leadership level is gathering to determine what the priorities are for next year and what the strategy is, so that when we get to our summer summit where we launch much of our work, we have a plan that is coherent across our offices and that is mutually supportive. I think that the content leader or content expert role is a really good example of that. We understood that there was a need among teachers to develop a clearer understanding of how to use the high quality curriculum that so many of our school systems have adopted. And so we together said, what do we need to ensure that occurs? Well, we need people at the school level who can do that. And so the development of the content expert role really was a deep collaboration between our office and the curriculum and instruction office, with our office sort of working through the way that the role could be structured in policy, the credentialing process, what it would take to establish this formal role, what it would take for that role to be used effectively within schools within the context of a total school talent system, and worked together with the academics team to develop with a vendor the actual training for that role, when it would occur, how it would line up with the credential that we've developed. So we just have to work very, very closely together to ensure alignment and coherence across all these initiatives. That plays out also in our ESSA planning process insofar as our teams have all worked together to develop the application for federal funds. And the questions that we ask on that application are geared exclusively around the priorities, the academic and talent priorities that we have for the state, so that we're really asking for school systems, asking from them what we are asking of ourselves, and that is, what are your academic and instructional priorities for the following year, and structuring it in a way that it aligns with the supports that at the state level we're able to provide. It's not glamorous work, but it's so important, and we spend a lot of time as a team talking about how to ensure that our efforts are mutually supportive and coherent.
Thanks, Hannah. So really establishing those norms and priorities up front and across the agency, it seems, having regular times for really checking in and making sure that that coordination and alignment is happening multiple times a year.
Yeah, and Seth, to put a fine point on it, I would say that the exercise of setting priorities together for the agency and for the agency's work is a really critical part of that process, so that everyone is on the same page in terms of how the agency will be focused in the coming year and how that will look in the field.
Perfect. Thanks, Hannah. And one last question to both of you before we turn it over to Q&A for our participants. What advice would you give to another state looking to develop similar initiatives? What would you want a governor or a state chief to know or wish you had known prior to getting started on this work? We'll first go to Donald and then go to Hannah.
What I would first strongly recommend is that you involve current principals, particularly those who have been recognized as effective principals. Involve them in the design and the implementation of a school leadership program to make sure that it addresses the needs as they see them. And I'll say that the role of the principal has changed so much in just a generation since I first entered the education profession, where it used to be that a principal was mainly a manager, someone who just managed the school and made sure that everything ran smoothly and the buses ran on time. It's now very much an instructional leadership program. So it's important that the program involve identifying teachers who are recognized as effective teachers. And that's why I think that's one of the strengths of the Louisiana program, is that they start with those teachers. They identify them, they work with them, give them experiences as mentors, as content leaders, and then they will eventually work through the process and become those school leaders.
All right, great. Thanks, Donald. And over to Hannah.
I think that, Seth, to your point, providing high-quality opportunities to develop and support leaders requires a clear intent about what you expect leaders to do. And I think Donald raises a very important point that the role of the principal has shifted over time. And I think any state seeking to support principals should try to acknowledge that and provide training and support to prospective and current principals that is very aligned with and that coheres with the academic vision that the state has for students and teachers. And creating that sort of alignment of support and expectations for students, teachers, and principals is where we see our best efforts play out.
All right, thank you both. So now we're going to open it up to participants for any questions. To ask a question, we have three options. You can use the raise hand feature and we'll unmute you. You can type your questions into the questions box or email education@nga.org and we'll respond that way and answer your question. Thank you. While we're waiting for questions to populate, just say that we will have a recording. I think I mentioned this up front. We'll be sending it to all the participants in the next few days. It will be posted on the NGA Education Division webpage, where we also have links to the Wallace Knowledge Center, the Wallace Foundation resources on school leadership, and a recording that we had back in fall 2018, so just a few months ago, where we spotlighted both Tennessee and Delaware's efforts to advance school leadership as well, bring governors and state chiefs as part of that conversation. So as you're looking for models for school leadership and moving it forward, in addition to Louisiana, you'll also find in that same place Tennessee and Delaware examples as well. We'll just give it another 30 seconds, minute or so, and then we'll close out. All right, well, if there is any questions after the webinar, please email us education@nga.org. We'll get back to you. Again, thank you to Donald and Hannah. We really appreciate you taking the time to share your expertise with us today. There is a brief survey at the end for the participants. Please make sure to submit your answers before closing out of the GoToMeeting webinar. Again, thank you, everyone, and have a great day.
Thank you. Bye-bye.